I got involved. I started teaching here in 1991, so I'd been here a long time, gone through promotions. I also had taught at Harvard, University of Colorado, and UCLA, so I had a little bit of experience with other faculties in different ways. And in my experience here, I felt and thought very strongly that decisions were made secretly in the administration, that the faculty was in many ways in need of more say in how the institution was being run. And I also felt that there was a lot of ad hoc decision making from administration, which could be to one person's advantage, but there was too much kind of quid pro quo, there was too much deal cutting to really seem as functional as a faculty should be at a university. There just seemed to be so many stopgaps that were made kind of on in situations, and so I had not. Well, I had also been part of a union drive at UCLA as a graduate student, though I don't think the union came in when I was there. But I didn't know that much about unions. But when I realized and heard that Marie Vituli and some other people were trying to get a union started here, I thought it was a good idea. I thought it would be really to the benefit of the institution, partly through trying to get more across the board transparency and just more empowerment and more regularizing. So I was enthusiastic from the start, and I think I was kind of coming to the meetings at the start. It was an interesting process because it was exciting, but it was also, we just really didn't know how to do this. And I think Marie and I'm not sure who were kind of in charge of getting the AFT as a possibility, and then also the AAUP, but that group didn't really have the clout or the bucks or the know-how to do it. So it was pretty early on. I think we got counsel to try to get the AFT, and so the organizer who came was Dennis Zemer, and I remember him very, very clearly. It was difficult from the start because there was a lot of wariness. People didn't have much experience thinking about it here, and he was a nice enough guy, but he didn't seem to have a real grasp of university culture. And that was, I think, a real problem from the start, even though I think he was trying to get going the kinds of organizing that probably work better in a high school or some lower school district, but he didn't seem to really grasp what people are doing here and why we have irregular schedules and what research is about. And in addition, I think there was a certain kind of resistance or ignorance, or the United States is a kind of anti-intellectual culture. And so the idea of the university as some other, slightly suspect arena seemed to be possibly at play there. But we kept trying to get things to work, but it would be difficult going with some of the organizers. And at some point, which I'm not quite clear, there was another organizer who came who was more senior. I don't know if he was retired and had a special. And when he got here, it became even more difficult. And it was a situation where it was really hard to communicate to these organizers what the nature of our work is. And it could be awkward going to talk to someone, let's say, director of the Humanities Center, and then try to keep the conversation from derailing in uncomfortable ways. And then, especially when the two of them were here, to be really honest, I think the fact that the people in the organizing, on the university side were very strong women and very openly lesbian women, did not supply the kind of organizational familiarity that these guys could relate to. And so some of the sense that we organizers had of condescension and just kind of difficulties being on the same page with our goals, in addition to trying to navigate an increasingly suspicious administration, because this also had resistance there, but then trying to persuade the ignorant or baffled or worried faculty with these organizers became really difficult. And then it just became really awkward. And so I'm not exactly sure. Partly I wanted this part of the story to be told because we didn't give up. The people here who wanted this union to happen were trying to hang in there and make it happen. And so I don't know all the details, and maybe someone else does, but I know that at a certain point, Marie and I think I was in on it a little bit, we said we've got to contact AAUP because of this culture problem. And so I think that, a phone call was made. I think Carrie Nelson, who's a Spanish Civil War scholar, I think he was president of the AAUP at that point, and a call went to them and said, look, we need some help here. This is going to get derailed because we have started the process, and if it doesn't finish in time with the card checks, it's going to just go off the cliff. So somehow that meeting happened, and people somehow, I'm not sure how, but I hope somebody knows, the AAUP stepped in and we had some help from people who knew more about union organizing to try to get the right kind of organizing here so that people here could work with the organizers better, the organizers could make the translation that was necessary about union things to a very highly trained, intellectual, academic audience of people who are used to spending, all their time by themselves in their lab. And, that kind of, and it happened. It happened. And so different organizers came. And by that time, I wasn't able to be, somehow in the middle of the actual card check, I had been in a car wreck and I couldn't be part of it. And then I guess Marie got sick and couldn't be part of that either. And then there were also, in the midst of all this difficulty, people had trouble getting along with each other, just because it gets harder and harder when you're trying to work through difficult times. But it started to happen, and the new organizers came, and I met a few times with them. I did some things on the initial parts of the card check. But my sense of the story is people were not going to let it go over the cliff. And people said, we want this union to happen, and we're not sure how it can happen. We don't know, but it's not going well, and we need to get it fixed. And so I just wanted that part of the story, because I think it was somewhat different people who then kind of took over the organizing and got it through to completion. And so that's the part of the story I just emailed Michael Dreiling and I said, I hope this part of the story gets told. So that's why I'm here. Actually, to tell you the truth, when the first organizing started, it was almost what I had feared would be the case with union organizers. You know, too much pizza, too much beer, not enough discussion of Plato. So, anyway, I mean, to really translate and work here and understand the nature of this particular republic. So, anyway. I think it already made a difference, even when we were organizing and when the organizing was happening. I think that just the fact of organizing brought about some change in salaries, for example, some change in promotions, for example. But I went to a lot of the bargaining sessions for the first CBA, and it was just so heartening how many people were there and how smart and how focused and how the way that the bargaining happened. It was exactly what I had pictured might be a sort of best case scenario, because I saw, you know, the people on the faculty who were working on the bargaining team. I saw the way that there was that kind of rational, clear, respectful countering. And that is exactly what I had hoped would happen. And then I think that the CBA, as it's been negotiated now, has done some of the regularizing, some of the transparency, some of the consistency, and some of the greater respect for differences of opinion and the possibility that the administration can't just go willy-nilly making decisions and not expect some kind of pushback. So I think we've come a ways because we've started to do things like regularize the NTTF categories, and we've also got procedures in place for when somebody feels there are irregularities or problems or something that needs to be done, and I think the union gives the faculty and the people in the union some procedures for how to act, how to respond. And I also think that every department has had to go through a kind of reorganization and reclassification to get in line with the CBA, and that has been to the benefit of the whole university, to get consistency, regular procedures, regular categories, regular ways of doing things, regularizing things within departments and across departments. It's exactly what I thought would improve everybody's experience here, the students, the faculty, the staff, the administrators, just having more consistency. So I think it benefited, and I mean, we're still at the bottom of the salaries. We're still have ranking problems, and we're in the middle of a big attempt to reshuffle all that right now, which is worrisome to a lot of people. But I do think that because of the union, whatever happens with the current somewhat from the top down, you know, everything now has to change, we're getting rid of NTTF categories, I think the union at least gives some principled, reasoned place to get that sorted out in a way that's more rational than it used to be, I think. So I have that hope. I mean, I do feel like I've been here 25 years. I've seen this, you know, complete doing away with all the NTTF categories just on a fiat. So it's my hope it won't happen the way it did then. Now it's happening for some reasonable reasons, which is to make even greater consistency and, you know, but I just hope that with the union, the faculty and the people whose jobs are on the line will have at least more of a structure and procedures and spokespeople and a sense of legal recourse and just clear-headed thinking to make sure that the reorganization is not only decided from the top and that there's some across, you know, across the board, you know, people at the bottom as well as people at the top working out what ought to happen. So that's you know, that's my hope, and I do think there's more in place than there used to be now that there's a union. There's more in place for more rationality and more clarity and more input from different levels about how to solve problems. Well, I'm about to retire, so that part of my future is probably not going to be that involved with the union. But my vision for the future, I actually am more optimistic about the organization here than I've ever been the whole time I've been here. I love the U of O. I love the students. I'm from this part of the world. And some of my experience at the U of O is I wanted it to be better than I was finding it with this kind of administrative stuff. But my hope for the future is that the administration and the union will continue to work well together, because I think that the first two CBAs that were put together were pretty successful, especially once the first process got seriously in the middle of its taffy pull. But I'm very concerned about, you know, what's currently going on, but I'm also aware that the union is involved in trying to keep talking about who's making decisions about who loses which jobs, and I'm very concerned about, you know, that the union keep stepping up and that the administration keep treating the union with respect, which has been happening. I mean, as I say, even from the start, things got better just because of the fact that we were organizing. So I'm hoping that the union can stay smart and that it will thrive. I'm hoping that I'm on the Senate too. I really I really hope that more shared governance and more input and more getting the focus very clearly throughout the institution on the right kinds of issues, and the ways that we can together, with a common effort, solve these problems. And I think the union is a really key part of that. And I think the Senate is a really key part of that. And I think the other unions that are a key part of that, so that the institution can get out of what I found from the start to be a kind of oligarchical model for how it carries on its business. So I think it's in a good place. I think, and I'm hopeful. So I'm hopeful the union will get stronger, and I'm hopeful that governance will work better here for everybody. So anyway, I'm hopeful.